Hello, my name is Christian. I work for UNICEF in Guatemala. Experts say that what I do every day contributes to the climate. So it seems it's up to me and to every one of us to make a choice if we want to contribute to a better world for us today and for future generations. Because of greenhouse emissions, the average temperature in the world rose by 0.74 degrees Celsius in the 20th century. That's what the IPCC says. That's the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, made up of experts from around the world. Now, 1 degree, or less than 1 degree, in over 100 years may not seem like very much, and actually quite pleasant if we are a bit cold. But the world is like a body, like our bodies. If we raise our temperatures by 1 degree, we're sick. If we raise it by 2 degrees, we're really quite sick. And the scary part is that the temperature of the world is increasing faster and faster every year. So let's illustrate this by taking 2 examples. 2 boys, 13 years old, one in Sweden and one in Guatemala. Sweden, because that's my home country, Guatemala, because that's where I work. First of all, Sven. He lives in a small town in southern Sweden. He's 1.65 meters, and he goes to a secondary school. And what about Juan? He also lives in a small town in southern Guatemala, not in southern Sweden. He stopped going to school this year because the secondary school in town is private and his parents don't have money to pay for his schooling. To him, climate change is the difference between the rainy season and the dry season. So what's the difference at community level in these 2 countries? Sven, he goes to school in a biogas-driven bus. In the past 3 months in school, they've had group work about climate change, about the environment, and a class debate specifically on whether Sweden should continue to use nuclear power. There's a garbage collection system. Every house has several toilets, and it's served by the communal safe sanitation system. And every household has to recycle its waste. In Juanstown, there is no sewage system, nor a garbage collection system. The public transport is a network of old buses which spit out a cloud of big black smoke every time they accelerate. The houses have a wooden stove heated by cheap coal or wood, and Juan's house does have a latrine, but it's unprotected and may well contaminate the water table. During the years Juan spent in school, they never had any discussions about the environment or about climate. So what about the difference at national level? Sweden, where Sven lives, they have one of the more stringent laws on emissions and environment in general in all of the world. There is subsidy for buying fuel-efficient cars, and you pay less for garbage collection the more you recycle. However, temperatures are rising in Sweden as well, and the weather patterns are more intense. Yet, overall predictions point to Sweden and its immediate neighbors to be less affected by climate change in the future than any other region. Juan, on the other hand, and his country of Guatemala, the land of the Maya, already suffers a great deal from climate change. According to one study, it's the second most affected country in the world due to climate change. 83% of GNP is produced in areas of natural disasters, such as floods, landslides, hurricanes, which are all directly related or exacerbated by climate change. Already, 1 in 2 children under 5 suffer from chronic malnutrition. This is a result of not getting enough food or not getting enough of a varied diet. The effects of rising temperatures will be higher prices of agricultural goods, probably resulting in a less varied diet because it costs money to buy very different foods. So why the hike in prices? Because of more frequent droughts and heavy precipitation, which will lower production yields. Today, more than 60% of Guatemalan children live in poverty. The rising temperatures will increase the incidence of storms and heavy rainfall, causing damage and loss to infrastructure. ECLAC, the Economic Commission for Latin America and the Caribbean, estimates that the accumulated cost of climate change in Guatemala, without mitigation efforts, will be 1.4% of GNP, already by 2020. By the end of this century, it will be 5%. Because of climate change, it will take longer for the country to increase access to health services and to education for kids, because of losses in infrastructure and in GNP. Primary school enrollment has already dropped by 10% in the last 4 years, according to the Ministry of Education, from 98% to 88%. In some, poverty will be more difficult to reduce. The Ministry of Environment and Natural Resources produced 3 scenarios for 2050 in Guatemala: a normal, optimistic, and a pessimistic one. All 3 point to an increase in temperatures that is at least twice the global average, which is at best around 2 more degrees in this century. Guatemala will easily pass this increase already in 2050. The Guatemalan Ministry of Agriculture predicts that climate change will lead to an increase in morbidity and mortality, and especially in acute respiratory infections, diarrhea, and vector-borne diseases such as malaria and dengue. The 4th IPCC report predicts increases in the level of the ocean by up to 1 meter by the end of this century. This will affect people living along the coast in Guatemala, in particular in areas susceptible to flooding, erosion, hurricanes, and intrusion of salt water into freshwater reservoirs. So the list is extremely long of what Guatemala, Juan and his friends are facing. So what can we do about it? Well, we can do some things. I would like to mention just 3 things where I think Guatemala can be inspired by Sweden. First of all, every one of us in Guatemala can be more conscious of what's happening. Tell a friend or a colleague every week of the year about what we are facing. If we start with 10 people, after a year, 13,000 people will be aware. If we share it on Facebook or other social media outlets, after a year, maybe 13 million will be aware. Second, lower our greenhouse emissions. Put pressure on local and national politicians and industry to pollute less and to force everybody to drive cleaner cars and buses. Third, get the subject into every classroom in Guatemala. Push your schools and the Ministry of Education to get the subject into the education curriculum. These measures will help reduce emissions and improve the management of and attention to risk reduction measures. So, just as Sven, Juan should have the right to know and to act in his community and in his country to help save the world. Let's help him do so.